Well, good morning. Happy Tuesday to you. It is Tuesday, the 13th of January. We are almost halfway through the month of January, almost 120, almost 2% into the new year. And I haven't talked yet this morning. I'm still running a little bit low on the energy, and my voice is still a little bit hoarse. But I imagine by the end of the week I'll be fine. I can tell that I'm getting better day by day. Thank you for joining me this morning. Appreciate it, and I hope you're having a beautiful day so far in the Lord. It's good to gather together and study God's Word. And thank you for joining me. We do have a hold on. Let me look over here. Today is the 13th. We do have a birthday. Bonnie Feller. Happy birthday, Bonnie. Man, hope you're having a great day. It's cold where you are. Yeah, man, I'm still a little bit congested. And the only downside to congestion is I can't sing higher. My voice is an octave lower, and well, in my head it's an octave lower. But anyway, let's see what else is going on. Yeah, the family made it back. They had a great time. They're all kind of recovering. Kind of got the details on that, and so we've gone through the house and picked up some stuff, and some stuff is going to take a little bit of time to put away and that sort of thing. Because you, it's not like you have, well, yeah. Anyway, so it just will take some time. That's all. That's all I have to say. And I'm finding things that, oh wow, that's interesting, type of things. So I think next time that I have this situation, I'll child-proof the whole entire house. I'll just put away all the stuff that could potentially, go in other places, and just do that. But it is a joy. It was a joy to have them in town, and I'm grateful for that. I know it was a lot of work to get them here on behalf of my daughter and my outlaws and all that sort of thing. And it was, I mean, the good news is that Arizona is not a bad place to be in the middle of, January, as opposed to some other places in the world, which are very, very cold. But honestly, until it gets really, 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 really cold, like the Arctic blast where it's negative 50 or 60 or something like that, most people who live up north can deal with a day that's 15 degrees or 20 degrees. They just put on more clothes, and they don't go out as much. They certainly don't play baseball outside. They go and find other activities. There's a lot more indoor activities available, as opposed to here where there's no, very, very few things, because most people can go outside in the wintertime. So, all right, let's get into our study. We are in Numbers chapter 33, and we're getting close to the end of the book of Numbers. This is the journey from out of Egypt to the gates of the Promised Land, and after we finish Numbers, then you have Deuteronomy, which is a restatement of the law, and then boom, they're off and running, and they get into the Promised Land, and there's all that sort of thing. We talked previously. Let's see. Hold on. We talked about how the tribes of Reuben and Gad and Ephraim wanted to build, and they made an agreement with Moses that they would still lead, but that they wanted to settle on the east side of the Jordan. And Moses has accepted that proposition. And then when we get into chapter 33, let's just start reading. Here are the stages in the journey of the Israelites when they came out of Egypt by divisions under the leadership of Moses and Aaron. At the Lord's command, Moses recorded the stages in their journey. This is the journey by stages. And I think that I think that one of the things that we really don't talk about very much is the fact that Moses did grow up in the household of Pharaoh. And because of that, he had access to something that the vast majority of people of his day did not have access to. And that was the written word, the ability to write down um, things that preserved for antiquity the journal of things, basically. And Moses wrote down the Torah, beginning with creation, ending up with into the promised land. Moses wrote all that down. And he had the ability to do that because he was educated in Pharaoh's court, whereas the vast majority of people had no education whatsoever. The ability, what we take, well, what we take for granted is the ability to read and to write and to have contracts with people and to record those contracts in a place and create a legal system and all that. Can you imagine what life is like if you do not have that ability? Like one person may remember a contract one way and another person may remember a contract the other way. One person may not even remember a contract. How do you enforce an agreement between two people if you can't write it down and preserve it in posterity? There is so much that the modern world takes for granted that just wasn't available to the vast majority of people throughout human history, and certainly not at the time of Moses. And I think one of the things that God provided for when he saved Moses' life and allowed him to grow up in Pharaoh's court was to preserve a history of the Israelites, because Moses was able to do that. And I just think that is so cool. I really, really do. Now, there are oral traditions, and probably most people that couldn't read or write would have, this is what people did. At the end of the day, when the work was done and they were putting the kids to bed or they're all gathered together around the fire, the elder of the community would recount the stories that are important to the community. And it was twofold. One is it created an entertainment, right? Because if you are going to recount the stories over time, you learn how to recount them in wonderful, fantastic ways to help build that shared history together, to tie the family together. But it also records, so besides entertainment, it's also an oral tradition of recording what the history of the tribe is. And when it's not written down, the tribe keeps that in their memory. But if the tribe is decimated or goes away, everything's gone. Unless it was chiseled into stone or written down on a papyrus or somehow preserved for antiquity. Think of all the tribes, all the people groups that have existed throughout the world. We will never know who they were, how they existed, what they did, what their life was like, what were their challenges, what were their joys. All of those things, we just will never, ever know anything about them. We live in a time where we're preserving books and, now audio recordings and video recordings and things that future generations could, if they wanted to, go back and look at. And I do wonder if future generations will come, because of YouTube, the future generations, 10, 20 generations from now, will come back and look at what life was like on January 13th, 2026. What research would you do if you could go back and have a YouTube video of the 1880s or the 1770s or the 1500s or something like that? It's just fascinating. But I will say this, that God knows everything. God records everything. He knows who you are. He knows what your joys were, what your struggles were. He knows everything about you. And I think, although there's no scripture to prove this, I think that one of the joys of heaven is finding out that God knew everything about your life and that you're able to remember certain parts of your life and share that with other people. Maybe that's what heaven's all about, is being able to go back through your life and share it with other people, which makes heaven an infinitely long period of time to be able to share with people your life. Maybe they even experience your life with you. I don't know. I don't know. Heaven is a long time, and God is an infinite God, and I shouldn't say I can't wait, but I am looking forward to the day when I stand before God and am able to recount, not without fear of retribution, because Jesus has cleansed me, but a joy of looking, what did God do through my life? I'm excited for that, to find out the things that I didn't even know about that God was doing. That's going to be a cool thing. All right. Kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent. Let's go back to verse 3. All right. The Israelites set out from Ramses on the 15th day of the first month, the day after the Passover. They marched defiantly in full view of the Egyptians, who were burying all their firstborn, whom the Lord had struck down among them. For the Lord had brought judgment on their gods. The Israelites left Ramses and camped at Succoth. They left Succoth and camped at Etham at the edge of the desert. They left Etham, turned back to Pi Hahiroth to the east of Baal Zephon, and can continue to Migdol. So we all know the story of the Passover. Moses, commanded by God to lead the people out of slavery in Egypt, and they had the Passover. The angel of death passed over the firstborn, and but those that did not put the blood on the doorposts were killed, and Pharaoh's son was one of those. He let the Israelites go. They left on the day after the Passover, and they marched out defiantly in full view of the Egyptians, who were burying all their firstborn. They were so ridden with sadness at the death of all their firstborns. They just didn't care about the Israelites leaving. They were kind of excited to see the Israelites leave. But what we do know is that after the Israelites started leaving, they kind of woke up from their stupor and said, wait a minute, all of our slaves are leaving. Do we really want this to happen? And so they tried to go after them and recapture them and bring them back to Egypt, or at least have retribution for this death that happened in their camp. But God successfully crossed them over the Red Sea. As far as these places, yeah, look at this. I do have a map that kind of outlines what this is. So they left Ramses, which I'm guessing is modern day Cairo, and they came down to Succoth, and then Pi Hahiroth. They crossed over the Red Sea, and then they continued down to Mount Sinai over here. Oh, look at that. All right. So this is just going to give you all the different places and the journey that they took. And you can see as they wandered in the wilderness, this is kind of the path that they took. And they ended up on the east side of the Jordan River. And that's basically what this is going to talk about. All right. Yeah, they left Succoth and camped at Etham on the east side of the desert. Verse 7. They left Etham, turned back to Pi Hahiroth to the east of Baal Zephon, and camped near Migdol. They left Pi Hahiroth and passed through the sea into the desert. And when they had traveled for 3 days in the desert of Etham, they camped at Marah. They left Mara and went to Elim, where there were 12 springs and 70 palm trees, and they camped there. They left Elim and camped by the Red Sea. They left the Red Sea and camped in the desert of Sin. They left the desert of Sin and camped at Dophkah. They left Dophkah and camped at Alush. They left Alush and camped at Rephidim, where there was no water for the people to drink. They left Rephidim and camped at the desert of Sinai. They left the desert of Sinai and camped at Kibroth Hattavah. They left Kibroth Hattavah and camped at Hazeroth. They left Hazeroth and camped at Rithmah. They left Rithmah and camped at Rimmon Perez. They left Rimmon Perez and camped at Libnah. They left Libnah and camped at Rissah. They left Rissah and camped at Kehelathah. They left Kehelathah and camped at Mount Shepher. They left Mount Shepher and camped at Haradah. They left Haradah and camped at Machelath. They left Machelath and camped at Tahath. They left Tahath and camped at Terah. They left Terah and camped at Mithkah. They left Mithkah and camped at Hashmanah. They left Hashmanah and camped at Mazeroth. They left Moseroth and camped at Bene Jacan. They left Bene Jacan and camped at Hor Haggidgad. They left Hor Haggidgad and camped at Jotbathah. They left Jotbathah and camped at Abranah. They left Abranah and camped at Ezion Geber. They left Ezion Geber and camped at Kadesh in the desert of Zin. Let's just kind of stop there. So we're at 36. Let me just reposition this so we start at 37 again. All right. Let me bring up the map. Can I bring up the map? So, Rafidah, the one thing that isn't really, they didn't talk about spending a whole bunch of time in Mount Sinai. At least not here. These are lots of places, and the ability of Moses to record them. I think it would have been interesting to record them at how long were they there? How many days? How many months? I think that would have been interesting. But this is a lot of movement, and every time they moved, every time they had to tear down the temple and the tabernacle. And they had the priestly class would carry the three pieces of the temple, the wood, the tents, and the temple furnishings. And every time they would set up camp again, they would have the people set up in a certain way, and they would live for a while, and then they would move, and they'd have to go through the whole thing again. I remember when we first started worshiping at Cienega High School, people would have to get there early and set up the chairs. First of all, if there was something that happened the night before, we might have to clean the floor and then set up the chairs, and you set up all the things for worship, the screen, the projector, the sound booth, the speakers, the chairs, the banners. We had banners. All the different things that you set up for worship to make it feel like home. And then right after worship, there was a whole team of people that took it all down and put it back in the box. And I think about those days because one of the joys of having a permanent sanctuary is that you don't have to do that anymore. You get to leave everything up from week to week. You have a place to worship. Sometimes you've got something going on in the week and you have to take down chairs and put up stuff. But for the most part, you get to continue to go from week after week. Certainly the sound system, which took a tremendous amount of time, gets to stay up from week after week. The good news is that it's less work. But the bad news, the thing that you don't think about, is that it took probably, 10, 15 people to be able to set up for worship on Sunday morning. And so we had teams of people that would come in and we'd rotate the teams and all of that. And people, I think there was a sense of belonging because it wasn't there was camaraderie within the teams. It was easy to learn. Okay, I need you to do this task, and so you learn how to do that task, and you did it every Sunday for a month. Um, there was just a sense of there is a sense of when you sacrifice an amount of time for an organization like a church, a congregation, um, and you do that week after week. It's a natural entrance into the congregation to start donating your time and your skill and your talent to be able to be part of a congregation. We look at the Israelites and think how difficult it must have been to completely relocate the camp. But if everybody pitched in, if the Levites pitched in, and if the people packed up their tents and everything, and after you've done that one or two times, it's not. I mean, what else are you going to do with your time? I mean, you'd find something else to occupy your time. What is a better way to occupy your time than in service of God? And so I look at this in two ways. In one way, I'm like, my goodness, how horrible it would have been to not have a permanent location. How much effort is expended in moving the whole tribe time after time after time again. But on the other hand, what a way to join together a people, because the only way that they exist as a people is that shared history and moving from place to place. It creates a path. It creates a shared history that they all remember, or they talk about it at campfires at the night. This is how we got out of slavery of Egypt. This is where we've been. This is where we're going. And it's going to take 40 years, but in this 40-year period, they're being molded together as a people, because the only thing that they have is not a land, but the shared history, the stories. And Moses is kind of recording all this, but the people are digesting it. It's part of who they are. All right, verse 37. They left Kadesh and camped at Mount Hor on the border of Edom. At the Lord's command, Aaron the priest went up Mount Hor, where he died on the first day of the 5th month of the 40th year after the Israelites came out of Egypt. Aaron was 123 years old when he died on Mount Hor. The Canaanite king of Arad, who lived in the Negev of Canaan, heard that the Israelites were coming. They left Mount Hor and camped at Zalmanah. They left Zalmanah and camped at Punan. They left Punan and camped at Oboth. They left Oboth and camped at Abarim on the border of Moab. They left Abarim and camped at Dibon Gad. They left Dibon Gad and camped at Almon Diblathaim. They left Almon Diblathaim and camped at the mountain of Abarim near Nebo. They left the mountains of Abarim and camped on the plains of Moab by the Jordan across from Jericho. And there on the plains of Moab, they camped along the Jordan from Beth Jeshimoth to Abel Shittim. On the plains of Moab by the Jordan across from Jericho, the Lord said to Moses, speak to the Israelites and say to them, when you cross the Jordan into Canaan, drive out all of the inhabitants of the land before you. Destroy all their carved images and their cast idols, and demolish all their high places. Take possession of the land and settle in it, for I have given you the land to possess. Distribute the land by lot according to your clans. To a larger group, give a larger inheritance, and to a smaller group, a smaller one. Whatever falls to them by lot will be theirs. Distribute it according to your ancestral tribes. But if you do not drive out the inhabitants of the land, those you allow to remain will become barbs in your eyes and thorns in your sides, and they will give you trouble in the land where you will live. And then I will do to you what I plan to do to them. And this, my friends, is the blessing and the curse. The blessing is you get your land. The curse is in order to occupy it and be my people without conflict, with a lot less trouble and barbs in your eye, is you've got to kill the people who live in the land. And do the Israelites do this? And the answer is no. and they do become a barb. They kill many, many people. They do as God commands, but they don't kill everybody. And they don't, there are people that are brought into the community that don't have that shared 40-year history. And they want to move things in their own direction. And this does become a thorn in their side, as Paul would say, a thorn in my flesh. All right. We'll leave it there, and we'll pick up we're getting very, very close to crossing over to the promised land. Well, not really, but we are. There's a lot of chapters to go, but locationally, we're very, very close. We're almost there. But then we have to have a lot of speeches and things. All right. So we'll leave it there. We'll pick up at chapter 34 at our next time together. And let's close in prayer. Gracious God, thanks for this day. And watch over us until we meet again. In Jesus' name, amen. Let me look to all you online. Yes, there was an amazing group of dedicated people. Yes. Oh, my goodness. That is so true. And you were part of that amazing group. Very much appreciate you. All right. May you all have a blessed day today. And we will see you. Let me figure out how. Okay. Yeah. We will see you tomorrow. Take care. Blessings. Bye.